There is a huge opportunity to grow the business of education. International student numbers are growing slowly, but we could also attract many more students than we do now to quality courses. This would allow us to tack on direct marketing of our country's tourism assets to a captive and identified overseas market, thereby creating jobs in both the education and tourism sectors. The possibilities are exciting and should not require significant amounts of extra funding, just innovative thinking and cooperation between providers and the government. The Skills and Transition Workstream also proposed improving the support for people coping with redundancy or unemployment. For people who lose their jobs in this recession, finding new jobs as quickly as possible is going to be very important. Here it's best to work from what we have already. There are a number of existing government programs which, for example, aim to match unemployed people with jobs and to provide financial assistance to relocate where there are available jobs. I think we need to have a good look at these sorts of programs to determine whether they can be made to work better by, for example, changing some of the levels of support that are offered. A number of work streams have mentioned infrastructure projects that will create jobs and have positive benefits out into the future. Many of these are environmental projects of one form or another. What I'm particularly keen to investigate are some energy efficiency projects around home insulation, and I'm going to ensure that they are progressed as quickly as possible. I've heard a lot of good ideas from firms today about regulation and how the government could ease this burden. I want to say that we are right behind that. In particular, I want to endorse the recommendation made by one of the work streams that the next 2 years is not the time to be adding business costs through regulation. There has to be a very high hurdle for new regulation, and we need to be thinking much harder of removing and refining existing regulations. We have kicked that process off with the first stage of reforms to the Resource Management Act. A further, more comprehensive review of that Act will be starting before too long. In addition, Rodney Hyde yesterday announced reviews of the Building Act and the Overseas Investment Act. We will shortly be in a position to announce further reviews of key pieces of legislation, as well as some quick gains that can be made relatively soon. Today's discussions have really confirmed to me that these are important steps for the government to be taking to prepare the economy for a more productive future. I've heard ideas today about how the government could boost the tourism sector, and I can report that the Minister of Tourism is very keen to progress these. In part, this is because the tourism sector is an important part of the New Zealand economy and a big employer. But also getting people from overseas to come here and to spend money is about the best form of economic stimulus I can think of. When visitors come here and spend money on food or petrol or accommodation, transport and entertainment, it's an injection of money into the New Zealand economy. Finally, I agree with the work stream on firm funding that one of the most critical factors in getting out of this recession is a well-functioning credit market. Firms need to access finance to make the investments that will lead to new jobs and growth. That work stream deserves the Chocolate Fish Award for robust discussion. If people thought that this summit was going to be tightly scripted, they only need to sit in on the discussion with and between the banks. As a former banker, I congratulate them for their ingenuity in developing the idea of a co-investment equity fund where both the government and banks put in money to provide equity support for New Zealand companies over a prescribed time frame. For the non-bankers here, that means providing a pot of investment money to help New Zealand companies get the access to share capital they need to grow the cake and therefore to create jobs. This really is the sort of innovative idea that would never have happened without today's summit. Many of the other suggestions around the development of the capital markets also look promising and will be considered as part of the longer-term review of capital markets, where the recommendations of the Capital Markets Development Task Force will be particularly valuable. So where to from here? We are going to look at the ideas that have been suggested today, and as I said, we will be responding to them publicly on the Jobs Summit website. To make sure this work gets done properly, I'm going to give my own department, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, the responsibility for coordinating activity across government. They will report directly to me. I'd like to continue the cooperative process that led to today, and therefore I'm keen to involve the work streams of the chairs in this process without making it too onerous for them. Others of you may well be involved as ideas are developed further. To make sure things are progressing, I'm going to invite the chairs to meet with me in around 6 to 8 weeks to review where we've got to from here. I want to finish today by making an observation. We are doing something here that most countries could never do. We've got everyone together in the same room to feed off each other's ideas. Granted, we're a small country, and granted, this is a rather large room. But we've got a group of people together today who cover most sectors of the economy and most interests, to work together with a collective sense of New Zealand and the people who make up New Zealand. Just that alone gives me a great deal of confidence that as a country we can work together to find solutions to some very difficult problems. So finally, as you leave here today, I want you to be very proud of yourself. Everybody that came here to the summit took a risk, but you put the interests of the country ahead of yourself or your organisation. You did so for the good of the future of this nation. You did so for the good of a great little country, and for that, I'm truly grateful.